Hey, Eric.
The Bouncer.
Yes, that's a good video game. Did you know if you go to patreon.com/retroim, you can hear us not talk about The Bouncer?
Yes, we hear it's Xenogears.
It is Xenogears. It's a podcast that we do, and you can go there and support us if you like. Would you like to hear some hot sounds that I have recorded?
Yes.
Welcome to Retrograde Amnesia, a comprehensive podcast about Xenogears. We once dreamt of having a podcast. Then we dreamt of having a podcast that people listen to. Then we dreamt about doing a podcast about dreams within a dream within a video game. Tonight, we achieved that dream. My name is Eric.
Thanks, Chris. Did you do that on purpose, or did you fuck that up?
That was an actual Ron Burgundy moment where
Wow.
I had your name written on here so I would remember to introduce you, and
Like, the response I was coming up with was, wow, you really spend a lot of time formulating these. That is thematically appropriate in both our lives and the flow of this podcast and the structure of this chapter, but then you fucked it up at the end.
my name is Chris. Tonight I'm joined by Eric. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Chris.
Good to see you. Also, we are joined tonight by the RealNet, a collective of patrons who listen to us record live on our Discord server while providing commentary. At the end of the show, we will read and react to that commentary. Thank you for joining us tonight, RealNet and FakeNet.
Oh yeah, sure, thanks, whatever.
Thank you, FakeNet.
Thank you, Chris.
Eric,
Hey, Chris.
what happened at the end of the last episode here?
Faye jumped in a pool of glow stick liquid.
I was going to say he jumped in the sewers like he was going to fight the Rat King.
Yeah, I didn't. Was there any... Thank you for bringing up the Rat King. Was there any indication of why he was jumping down there? Did he not know what else? I mean, he got shot, right? Then he got back in the gear and was like, let's go. This is reality.
Yeah, yes, it was his reality that he needed to go rescue Ellie at that point in time, but we don't actually get that sequence at all. It's another...
Yeah, also Ellie wasn't Ellie, so there's no person to come back to rescue, right?
He felt as if he had to do that, I guess. You know, every now and then you feel like you have to do something and you just do it even though you don't have time to really assess the situation.
Yeah, also later we may know that some original personality may bleed through a Miang artifice.
Yeah, a Miang artifice indeed. So, yeah, he jumped down there, but we don't really get a good sense of what happened down there because we have no one left to tell us the story because Ellie is gone and Faye is gone. So
yeah, our narrator is left the building.
Yes. So the only person that is, I guess, the next chair sitter is Saiten. He's here. He's here to tell us about the chapter Dreams. Do you have the Japanese?
Can I make a correction on that one, sir?
Yes.
Dreams ...
Oh yeah, Dreams ellipsis.
Yes.
Ellipse.
So is this chapter actually called Memento of Dreams, Dreaming, or Nights into Dreams?
I kind of had a feeling. Can I make a quick commentary about Nights into Dreams?
My favorite game of all time? Yeah, go ahead, hit me.
I feel like within our Patreon community, we've like found our people because like there's people that love Nights into Dreams. There's people that love...
They're people of taste, yes.
Yeah, people who love, retro games and all kinds of things, CRTs, enthusiasts. Yeah. Like we found the correct collection of people to listen to us talk onto the internet, so I appreciate that. But I'm going to go with, what was the second choice?
Memento of Dreams, Dreaming, Nights into Dreams.
Memento of Dreams is my thing.
I think so.
Okay, you forgot.
Did not actually underline the correct answer.
Okay.
Pretty sure it's Memento of Dreams. Well, the ding noise will signify a correct answer in post. Yes, so what is the music that we're supporting us with here?
It's actually, I wouldn't say the music is supporting us. I would say that the music is Ship of Regret and Sleep, and it is sending me into
Regret and Sleep?
Not sleep, but this song makes me... I guess I would say this song makes me cringe a little bit, or it makes me sad or scared or something. It gives me a feeling that I can't quite put my finger on, and it may just be a result is that we hear it so much in these next couple of sequences.
I don't like the electric piano synth noise that it makes. It's unsettling.
Yeah, in one of the previous episodes, you played a version that had lyrics.
Yes, that was from Myth.
Yes, I like that version.
Yeah,
so I guess I should say I like the song, but I don't like the game's rendition of the song.
The PS1 MIDI arrangement is not to Chris's pleasing taste.
No, it's not.
So we get Saiten, right? What's his JPEG? I have outside Mahanan ?
I think it's Merkava.
Okay.
I have Merkava.jpg.
Right. Merkava is actually the better word for that. It's a large metal structure and there's gears hovering outside.
Saiten says, God, the interplanetary invasion weapon Deus had awakened and its arc, Merkava, was activated. And that is kind of when we are, as the readers, we kind of focus in on the Merkava.jpg. And then he goes on to give us some more key facts about the scenario here.
Chris, can I throw a hypothetical at you real quick? Do you think it's plausible for our society to make a planet-destroying weapon that another society that it spawns ends up worshipping as a god?
It's quite the thing.
Mm-hmm. I was, the Moonies come into, which is a slur toward them, but fuck them, come into the local culture zeitgeist about once every couple of years. They're the religious people that go to the ceremony with rifles.
Oh, I don't know anything about these people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Whoa. You should do some research on your own time.
Okay, thank you. I'll do that. Yeah, it is weird. It is like in a weird way, and I know this wasn't the intent, but in a weird way, like the worship of Deus is kind of like the Second Amendment in America.
Yeah.
Where, like we worship our arms, and here we are.
The JPEG then switches to an ethereal, like white angels that are kind of levitating up to it. They're halfway translucent, and it says that Deus absorbed mutated people who were destined to be its parts.
Yeah, and the rest of us are to be exterminated. It's weird that those are the people that are remaining, like the ones that had a sync ratio with anima relics, were not mutated, because you would think that those would be like key parts.
Key parts, the key components.
Yeah, it's weird.
But instead, did this come out before or after Left Behind?
The movie Left Behind?
Well, no, it was a series of books.
Or the books?
Right? Yeah.
I don't know.
Right, where like some people are absorbed or like ascend, whereas the others have to remain on Earth.
As part of the rapture or whatever?
Yeah. So that's kind of, I'm sure that's not exclusive to Left Behind. I'm pretty sure that is just what the rapture is supposed to be.
Indeed.
So the way that's animated, I can't tell if the translucent beings are supposed to be those people and it's just taking their souls out of their bodies, or if they're physically absorbing into the thing and they're levitating into Merkava.
It's never explicitly said, because we never understand the mechanics of these things being absorbed into Deus.
Okay. Seitan in Yoda syntax goes on to say that, you know what I'm talking about? Where like the way the sentence is arranged is really weird.
Yeah.
Like the solution was to exterminate the remainder of the population through seraphs.
Yes. Seraphs, do you have the note on what these were called in the original Japanese?
No.
They were called aeons, which we've discussed in the past, which are Gnostic versions of angels, kind of. We have previously described aeon as an emanation of God. That's kind of how we described that way back when we were talking about the Nissan Cathedral. But yeah, they changed the word to seraph here, I guess, so it would read better. I'm not sure.
It was just part of it being a prequel to Final Fantasy X, of course.
Yes, indeed.
I have to defeat sin.
So it says the surface of the planet was devastated of these weapons, born of Merkava.
Yes.
So do we fight these at any point? Do you have any memory of this?
I think they are probably parts of random encounters in the final dungeon.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because this game has sort of morphed from a video game into a visual novel with boss battles, we probably won't have an opportunity to engage in any sort of random battles for quite some time.
Yeah, we're going to fight the Dune Men at some point. So my next JPEG I've got is Veltal in the Raziel hallway. Like somehow he made it back there, that place where the Raziel computers were.
At first, I thought he was in the dock in Shavat, like before I started reading the context, but he's clearly not there. I think he's in the shafts that he jumped down in. Yeah. And
so he just went back to where that they were like, well, where didn't they have trouble finding where Faye went?
Well, Seitan explains this in not very much detail. He says the group chanced upon Faye, whose whereabouts had hitherto been lost. Yeah. Hitherto.
Someone got really excited about writing that line. He's been waiting to use hitherto the entire time and finally injected it.
So I read that as this game almost actually had two protagonist incapacitation sequences. Yeah. Like the original one and this one, we would have had a moment where we would have had to have had our party and go after Faye.
Faye's in a fragile mental state. He's allowed to have as many incapacitated sequences as he's allowed for his recovery period.
Yes, take as many minutes as you need.
So speaking of taking someone, they take Faye to Shavat.
They do.
And he's surrounded by people in that conference room where they were debating what to do with him.
Well, it looked like he was already in the Carbonite freezer, or they were getting ready to press the button.
So they put Faye in Carbonite. That was their solution. And I had to imagine that the nameless NPC who suggested this was so psyched that he got to finally put his dude in Carbonite.
Yeah. That's true.
And he was he's like, fucking told him.
This is another one of those moments where it's like, we got to get this in the game. We have to have a Carbonite freezing because I have feelings about Carbonite freezing. And they do it.
Then Zephyr joined Seitan in the narration chair.
Yeah, well, they're just kind of like floating in space.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, This chapter is called Dreams, but I'm not really sure whose dreams we're seeing. I mean, we kind of see Faye's dreams, but those are in the next chapter. And so I guess people floating in space and telling us lore is what accumulates to being a dream, because we are being given the lore in this sort of dream state space floating place. But yeah, the first thing he asks, Sidon asks her is, why do they fear id so much?
And they say they don't fear id, they fear the error we committed, and now we are simply trying to put a lid on it.
Yes.
This is a vague reference to something.
Yeah, that error is when Shevat instigated a battle 500 years ago to gain independence from Solaris. And at this point in time, I wrote down, I guess we're finally going to get the details of this, because we've been told about things that happened 500 years ago many, many times. Yeah. Especially in the first probably 25% of the game, we heard about these events a lot. And now we're finally going to get the answers to that stuff.
Well, I don't know that it's independence from Solaris. It is part of the Surface versus Solaris war and the end of that war. Right? Yeah. Like an error they made then when Shevat feared that Sophia, Nissan's mother, was gaining too much power.
That's right. And she feared that, she being Zephyr, feared that the people would eventually side with Nissan and Sophia because they were war-torn.
Yeah.
And I think what she's saying here is like, the people on the surface have lived in a state of never-ending war, and they're sick of that. So they're basically opposite of modern-day Americans, where like we live in never-ending war, but we just don't think about it.
Yeah.
Those of Nissan thought about it, and she was afraid that they were eventually going to lose control over them, because although Shevat early in the game was positioned as like the good sky people,
yeah,
they actually also wanted to wrestle control of people from the surface as well.
Lesser pieces of shit. There's also the jealousy angle where Shevat is positioned in the sky as an alternative to heaven and something to idolize and look up to, and yet there's a woman on land who seems to have a command of power and some ethereal abilities that could draw attention away from Shevat, naturally kind of lessening their grip on the surface.
Yeah, that's an interesting read, because that kind of aligns with like how the Solaris established the ethos, like downstream in order to sort of try to offset that.
Yeah.
But in reality, it didn't quite work out that way once the ethos fell.
That was not reality. They did not go.
No, they didn't.
But instead, they made a deal with Solaris, and because the Gazelle ministry was also at odds with a woman who held real power.
Yes, that woman was Miang, and as the scene sort of fades out a bit, we get some floating text, I think, along a black background.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Gazelle were going to hand over Miang to Shevat, and then allocate some of the rulership of the surface to Shevat.
It wasn't hand over, it was a trade.
Yeah, and they were in exchange, they had to hand over the rebel army from Nissan plus Sophia. So
they staged a final battle at Nissan.
Yeah, which is
to end the war, there is going to be a wink nudge final battle.
Which that's a really neat detail from something that could have just been hand waved as a war that happened 500 years ago.
Yeah,
there's a lot of neat bargaining postures being created here to ultimately lead to the circumstances in which we are in the present with Faye and friends.
And it's not stated, but I have to imagine that one side thought the other side was going to fuck them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's how it always happens when you make secret deals to end wars between nations that are warring.
Yep. And Zephyr says that the elders accepted this, the elders of Shevat accepted these terms, and that Nissan would be the final battle place. And then we see a JPEG.
Mm-hmm. New one.
Yes.
Our background changes.
It looks like an army of sand cruisers and gears. I think there may be a couple of floating battleships as well.
It's red skies, too. It's clearly like a Twilight assembly.
Yeah, and we see this sort of Mars-like surface a lot over the course of these flashbacks.
The gears have spears and shields.
Yeah.
Too. So they're clearly infantry or something like that.
Yeah.
Which seems weird in an era when they also have missile launchers and guns and shit, but, whatever.
Yeah. We learned that the Nissan army was destroyed.
Yeah, the cowardly Shevat did not participate in this battle.
Yeah. And the following people were caught up in this battle, as we learned.
They were set up.
Names that we know. It was Lacan, Ronnie, Fatima, Zephyr herself, and Krelian.
It was also a trope where one good guy swindles another good guy and does a heel turn. And the most immediate example I can think of, fuck Mel Gibson, but at some point in Braveheart, like William Wallace had assembled all of his friends for their final battle, and then his friends no-showed. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what Shevat did to Nissan and those armies in this scenario, where they just didn't show up, and then they were pinned down, could not escape, massacre.
Yes, and then we learn about the turning point.
Yes.
The turning point we learned was that the Rebel Forces flagship appeared with Sophia on board, and she sacrificed herself to make way for their retreat.
Yeah, but via suicide attack.
Yeah.
In the middle, it also stated, I think this is the first time we've seen his name, was Zephyr, Ronnie Fatima, Lacan, and then Krelian was in quotation marks. Did you read any significance to that?
No, I just wrote down their names. I didn't notice the quotation marks.
Yeah, he was in quotes.
I wonder if that was just a way to call it out or to emphasize that.
What, that he was...
Like, oh, you know this fucking guy who used to be on our side.
Krelian, yeah.
Maybe that was the way to do it.
So then we get... I think they describe it, and then we actually get a CG movie.
Yeah, it's like a film grain CG scene.
It's sepia-toned film grain with like dust marks and shit. Like it was actually coming off a film reel.
Yeah, it's a little pretentious.
Yeah, but as a framing device for CG, like this is on the heels of Final Fantasy VII, right? Where CG movies and RPGs are a thing, and trying to do something even the least bit artistic with it can be seen as a step forward for storytelling in that genre. Like they didn't just want to tell a surface thing; they wanted to like accent it a little bit. I
agree with that. Or the alternative read could be that they just didn't finish texturing everything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's way easier to render it in sepia than actually make colors.
Yeah, we see that it's her ship sort of heading towards another giant ship, which we later find out is Merkava. But
it's barreling into a large capital ship and getting blown apart by fire on the way there.
Yeah, and we learn from Zephyr, her death forever changed the fate of two men.
Yes, there were also no sound effects for this.
Right. And then it kind of fades to a black background with a bit more exposition where we learn a little bit more about Krelian.
About these two men.
Man one being Krelian, the leader of the Nissan sex militia, lost faith after calling out to a god that would not respond. And then we see his like money quote that we're going to see again like 2 or 3 times.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, he says,
"I will create God with my own hands,"
were the last words that he uttered before he disappeared. And
that's fucking metal.
It is metal. It is one of the more metal things in this game, but I think there are a couple other cool lines that we're going to see later within these next few episodes of this podcast.
So who's the other man? Did this change?
But before we get to that, was Krelian was already super into nanomachines when he made this declaration. So he kind of already knew that he had like the capability of doing some like God creation science.
He could create life without man and woman birth.
Yeah, indeed. Yes, the other man, the second man, was a man that we know quite well in a different form, Lacan. Lacan, he resented himself for not having the power to do anything.
The power.
Yeah, she died right in front of him, and that was sort of his turning point. And that is when he began to search for the legendary capital power.
Yeah, what's more powerful than power?
Legendary power.
That's right, Chris.
Proper noun power.
So as part of this, Zephyr says that God's resting place, Mahanan, was the source of divine wisdom.
Yeah, Sidon does chime in a bit too and ask, like, what's the legendary power?
Oh, yeah.
And then she
Explain some lore to me, please.
Yeah, and isn't it weird, though, that at this point in time, like, Sidon, when we first met him and throughout most of the game, especially Disc 1, he was the player's crutch for understanding things. And then now he's our proxy, he's the one asking questions.
Yeah.
Whereas before he was giving us the answers. I think it's a neat, maybe by necessity because we don't have anybody else. Bart can't do this.
Yeah.
Like Bart,
despite direct ancestorial involvement, Bart cannot participate.
No, he is not equipped for chair sitting and lore dumping. It's just not in the cards for him. He has other skills. So it's fun that Sidon has become this proxy for the player because now we're finally beyond the point where the lore that the player is learning exceeds the lore that Sidon already knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, Zephyr says God's resting place, Mahanan, the source of divine wisdom, Raziel, and the anima relics, which are created by that very wisdom.
One more legend is the Zohar. We're getting a bunch of pronouns here.
Yeah. Zohar is like we already know pretty clearly what those other things are.
Yeah. Trying to understand Zohar is a major crux of understanding this game.
Yeah. And Sidon says, oh, that's got the same name as the Zohar modifier, which we have learned about during the Raziel's tree lore dump sequence.
Zohar is an infinite energy source, powers Deus, ether powers, and whatever else is driving all of their gears.
That's
so it's
right.
like magic electricity, wireless electricity, the dream.
Wi-Fi.
They've solved it.
Yes. The Zohar modifier is a very advanced router.
But what is the hitch for determining its location? Only one who has the correct destiny can determine its location.
That's right.
Lacan, then to search for it became Graf and the world collapsed.
Do you want to talk briefly about what the Zohar refers to in real life?
Sure.
Because I have that here.
Yeah, I was not aware that was even a word.
Oh, yeah, it's a word, and I'm going to read the Wikipedia definition. And
Wikipedia states,
the fake note states,
Wikipedia waits.
The Zohar is a foundational work in the literature of Jewish mystical thought known as Kabbalah. It is a group of books including commentary on the mythical aspects of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, and scriptural interpretations as well as material on mysticism and mythical psychology. The Zohar contains discussions of the nature of God, the origin and the structure of the universe, the nature of souls, redemption, the relationship of ego to darkness, and the true self to the light of God. Its scriptural exegesis can be considered an esoteric form of the rabbinic literature known as Midrash, which elaborates on the Torah.
Hey, Chris, you know it's a way easier way of saying all that?
Yeah.
Infinite energy source.
Yeah. Also, I could have just said what it means in Hebrew, splendor or radiance.
Cool.
So there we are.
So among the two men who were changed, who lost it harder here? The guy looking for God's power or the guy looking to create God? Pick a side.
Pick a side?
Pick a side.
Pick a side.
Who?
They both did fucked up shit with it. You really can't. There's no good guy here.
Are you asking me who I would side with, Krelian
Yes.
or Groff?
Right.
Interesting. I would probably side with Krelian.
Because at least he had noble ambition, whereas one was just corrupted immediately.
Well, something that we'll probably talk about a lot more later, but Krelian, his position evolves throughout his 500 years of existence or whatever.
Yeah.
Where Groff's position is always, I will destroy fucking everything.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate somebody who has a position that evolves when it is not disingenuous. It's like my dad used to be homophobic, but then when the Democrats started taking up that cause, my dad was no longer homophobic.
Cool. Yeah. So he's capable of learning and changing his behavior later.
He is, but it's sort of disingenuous just because his team changed their stance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Groff. Krelian, he evolves because I think he learns new things along the way in the process of creating God.
So you heard it there, folks. Chris picks the side that impoverishes people and creates a slave society and rules over...
It was a value judgment.
Yep. Your logic was good. So Zephyr pins all of this on people's lust for power and says that she could not stop it.
Yeah.
Like it got out of control at this point. And Zephyr to me didn't really strike me as like a key player here. She was kind of just someone who happened to survive.
Yeah.
Over the course of time.
Yeah, and it's also weird too because like we're going to see Zephyr in the flashbacks later, and she's still got the same sprite.
Yeah,
and she wasn't the queen at the time, so like I wonder if when she became the queen, she's like, I'm not changing clothes.
Yeah,
like this is what I wear.
This is not the queen outfit.
I wear sweatpants to work, and I'm not going to stop that.
So that kind of justifies why they're literally sealing Faye and Carbonite. She just wants to seal up the dreadful power that arose from those sinful deeds.
Right.
So Chris, do you think this would have happened had Shavat not betrayed the service people? Or this was something that was fated to happen? In any timeline, the Ellie character will always find a path to sacrifice. So fate versus, like, was this always a fate and this just happened to be the course? Or if Shavat didn't backstab the service people, like, was this result inevitable, by the way? Was the creation of Groff, Lacan, that lingering will, all this stuff, could that have been avoided had someone not tried to deal dirty?
I think it could have been avoided because Lacan didn't necessarily have to exist for 500 years. He could have just, his physical body could have died and he could have been transmigrated to the next thing.
He could have finished the damn painting.
And he could have finished the painting, died of natural causes, and then moved on to the next Fae body. So yes, I think this result was inevitable or was not.
Yeah, right? I went back and forth on it. I couldn't arrive at a good solution. Mainly because it's not a real event. But
well, yeah, but you think about the process that led them there. Like we learned that Lacan seeks the power because of the particular circumstances. If those circumstances didn't occur and he just lived a happy life where he finished the fucking painting, and then he would just die. Sophia would die, and then things would move on. There would probably be more humans. Now, Miang would have found a different way to reset the population,
right?
But these particular events didn't necessarily have to happen.
The delivery of this kind of tells us the end because, in a minute here, we go back and experience the circumstances that led up to this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Xenogears was just disorganized as hell and this was intentioned to be delivered this way, but...
You know how you hear the piece of advice when it comes to writing or storytelling of like show, don't tell? Mm-hmm. This is one of those cases where we are being told and then shown.
Yeah, and then shown.
Yeah, so we probably could have just had the show part, but with all this stuff coming at us so quickly here, for a first-time player, it may be necessary to reiterate these things several times.
If it told its story more capably, perhaps you wouldn't need a 50-episode podcast to dissect it. So, Citan then has a premonition that Faye, too, would wake up and seek out the same power as Lacan.
Yeah. Where does this premonition come from? Is he just, like, because he's been observing Faye for 3.5 years now.
Maybe he didn't know the whole story of Lacan, and then Zephyr told that, and he was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Because this guy in the same clothes is going to do the exact, like, he could see that they're on the exact same path with knowing who Ellie is, knowing who Sophia was. Like, I'm pretty sure he read about that in books, but now that he's actually spoken to Zephyr.
Yeah,
And plus, he probably had the Solarian version of that where it was propagandized into something else, right?
it's like thinking your friend is cool, then you learn something fucked up about him,
Oh, yeah.
or something fucked up about their ancestors.
I think that's called milkshake duck.
yeah,
Right?
sort of, yeah.
So here's a new word that it delivers. At some point, someone says, that presentiment became reality. I didn't know that word. I was like, they just made that shit up. It's a word.
Oh,
It means an intuitive feeling about the future, especially one of foreboding. So it's actually perfect.
yeah,
Like suspicious feeling about the future that you're afraid of.
yeah. That's interesting.
So then we actually go to a new physical location.
Yeah, the music stops here, and then there's dripping, more stereo dripping into the Shavat prison.
The dripping gives way to heartbeats that increase.
Yes, indeed.
We're in a purple light Shavat jail.
Yes,
So
and
they've installed some mood lighting.
and we see Carbonite Faye.
Yeah, Carbonite's must have some kind of lacquer they put over that because he's just like a guy in a thing.
Yeah.
It's not Han Solo'd where he's bronzed into a metal case.
Did you hear like a light tone, like a dial tone, like a short dial tone noise?
There is a dial tone noise.
Yeah.
Having already captured that, I was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
I think it's somebody entering the door.
Could
maybe.
be. Well, then his like the face sprite sort of lightens up a little bit,
Yeah.
and then the pendant is swinging and blinging in the background, or at least the sounds are there. The one who is torn apart is playing, and usually when the one who is torn apart starts playing, we know that we're in for some id shit coming up, and we don't really get all that here, but we do get some advanced interiority from Faye, or at least some interiority from Faye.
Yeah, I get the feeling that Faye sees in his mind, his body is out there doing shit, and we're finally getting that perspective of what happens when Faye gets closed out.
Yeah, and we're going into his dreams, and we see his sprite walking slowly. Is this when like there's like the blue ethereal
Yeah, he
ocean?
blue screens.
Yeah. Yeah. Faye definitely blue screens a lot throughout this game. And he doesn't know where he is, and he's wondering where he is, who he is, all that kind of stuff.
Literally, he's saying, where am I and who am I?
Yeah.
Dude's losing it.
And then he's like, oh yeah, I'm probably in my memory, and then a bunch of JPEGs become flying out at him.
He starts walking toward the swinging pendant.
Yeah. And he says, Doc, Bart, Rico, Billy, Wiseman, Groff. And I don't think I missed anybody, but he definitely missed some people.
Yeah, he meets Sidon and Lahan, and then there's a JPEG of Bart on the Yggdrasil, Rico and D-Block, Billy at the orphanage, Wiseman and Shavat, and then Groff behind a blood red moon.
Yeah, it's interesting that this is the selection of people that he has or his memory has chosen to show him at this point in time.
Yeah.
I mean, we know Ellie's coming up here soon, but he definitely missed Choo Choo, Maria, Margie.
These are the characters he met in this order, right? Wiseman's a weird pull there, but...
He met Wiseman before Billy.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right.
And actually, he met Groff before Bart.
Yeah, I think this may have been a case when someone was working on those bitmaps to make.
Yeah.
And they just were like, no, we're putting them in now. I don't care if you don't have Maria done.
Okay.
Put it in. Multiple Fays appear and start staring in different directions.
Yeah. It's weird. Many sprites.
Then Ellie appears and ghost walks into Sophia or maybe Karen, who then calls Faye, who Faye calls Mother.
Yes. I believe I also wrote down Karen. It's the same sprite that we saw in the ball bouncing stuff.
Yeah.
And in the, was it Krelian flashbacks, the Ramses creation flashback?
Yeah. So the game is really trying to do its best to use its existing assets to sell some weird psychotic breakdowns.
Yeah, that is maybe like, there aren't a whole lot of, there's minor things that parallel with Evangelion, but like the game is just throwing shit to create a sense of a thing, like throwing what it has left.
It did, given the time and where storytelling was, I think it does a pretty good job.
I agree.
So far.
Yeah.
Especially when all Fays merge into one and the screen turns white.
Yes. The pendant glows, and then we see an upside down evil Fae boy anime still.
Yeah.
Which is creepy.
Before that, though, doesn't the pendant go supernova and explode into light?
Yeah, I think so.
That was interesting. It's kind of like, okay, we're going to break this open.
Yeah.
Faye's brain is going to be busted wide open. So then Faye is sitting down, and what's he get hit with? A spotlight.
Yeah. Always in the spotlight, and it always makes that spotlight sound.
Yeah.
And the evil Fae boy sprite enters, and we know this sprite represents id, and he says, you are id.
Yeah.
And then he...
Can I make a programming note? Can we refer to this as kid id?
Kid id?
Kid id.
No, Eric, you know how when I start talking quickly, I run my words together, and then I have to say it all over again?
Okay.
I'm going to continue to call it evil Fae boy.
Okay, that's fine.
I reject...
EFB.
I reject it.
Kid id, kid vid.
Kid id.
Burger King Kids Club.
Sure. Yeah, he says, you are id. And then id says, I misjudged you. I didn't expect you, the fake personality, would create a fourth persona.
Damn it.
What's he talking about?
Well, right now we've got Faye, id, the coward, and...
Whatever's going on right now?
Right, yeah, whatever's going on right now that id is clearly hyper aware of because it's happening inside of, I guess, him, whereas Faye is just forging new territory to deal with this shit.
Yeah. he says he can't feel anything. He's
Yeah.
shut up inside your ego. And I think he's referring to the coward here.
Right.
The pressing fact and truths you won't face. You're afraid of them, so you desire to completely shut yourself off from the outside world. And so you formed a fourth persona, a fourth Fae. The name doesn't matter. He's the one on the stage. He's the one who's in control of our body. But it is a useless form of resistance. So is this maybe Fae, the current Fae, the 3-year-old Fae, creating an additional Fae to protect himself from the trauma that he's going into now?
Because maybe this Fae is lost.
Yeah.
So then something interesting happens where Id tells this new persona to come with him because he has a key that he wants to borrow.
Yeah.
So Id instantly wins over the persona that Fae created.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. There's a lot of...
That's weird to think about where you make a defense mechanism and then someone converts your defense mechanism into their offensive mechanism.
That is kind of all Id knows how to do at this point in his life, is how to destroy and take advantage of things.
So again, the only point of comparison I have to this is when Cloud loses it and is put in a wheelchair and says Xenogears in Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And I don't think... I haven't played that game in a while, but video games didn't do this in 1998.
No.
Nothing went really this far. And then Xenogears handles it clumsily, but it's really going for it here.
Oh, it definitely goes for it. And it has some failings, but also given what it had to work with and given the time in which the game was created, it's definitely more than passable.
I wanted the game with the robot on the cover.
Yes. And you...
What did I get?
Yeah.
The hell is this?
Yeah. Then
I liked it. It's just like a weird thing to think about.
What do you think was going through your head when you saw this originally?
I'm pretty sure I don't think it was going through my head. I think it was going over my head.
Great point. I know that one thing that was going on with me during this point in time was that I was very, I guess, like, I was upset that I didn't have control of the characters. Like, I didn't have a world map to go, like, level up Emeralda. Like, there were some things that were making me anxious about the structure of the second disc, and I think that probably culminated at this section, because Disc 2 has a reputation for being extremely verbose and long and wordy, but really it's only these 2 chapters.
Yeah.
It's really Dreams and Fallen Star are the ones that really put you in a visual novel and don't let you
it's
out.
Pages and pages of dialogue. But ultimately, this is the stuff that made me want to rush out and to be able to play this game because of how deep it went.
Yeah.
So in the end, I think it was beneficial toward its reputation, even if it does have the, what's that word, presentiment reputation of something foreboding and evil.
Indeed. The lights go out, and then we save our podcast so we don't lose it.
So out of nowhere, a voice says, "Are you coming too?" And the screen fades black, and then the lights shut off.
Yep.
Xenogears loves turning the lights off.
Oh, it does.
I would love to know where someone, like, who injected that idea for this stage play ass idea.
I know who injected it. Ano.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is that his first name or his
I don't know. I just know
name?
him by Ano.
Yeah, Ano. Yeah. So anyway, maybe not. Who knows? Yeah. Then Bonds of Sea and Fire starts to play.
No, Chris. Bonds of Sea and Campfire.
Nice.
There's a visible, like an audible campfire noise in the background over Bonds of Sea and Fire.
Yeah, and we haven't heard this track in a really long time, and it's my favorite track in the game, I think.
Yeah.
And it's Ronnie. It's Ronnie Fatima. He's got a portrait. I think it's the first time we've seen his portrait.
Yeah, he's Bart with bluer eyes and very shiny blonde hair.
Yes, he's telling people to eat because he's got some good-ass food because of his business savvy.
Yeah.
And this is a campfire scene, and we know campfire scenes are going to involve both lore and emotions.
I don't know that it says it in the actual game, but in Perfect Works, Ronnie and his brother, Renee, used to manage the Caravan, which was essentially a traveling goods service.
Yeah.
So they're merchants,
Yeah.
merchant warriors, so to speak, which explains why they have the resources to have this great feast at a campfire.
Speaking of Renee the beefcake sailor is also there.
Oh my god, yeah, like Renee, his brother, doesn't look like Bart. He looks like brown hair, bruiser build, one string of hair going down his face like a henchman, and then Bruiser is a really good Bruiser beefcake. I can imagine someone was commissioned to make this to like another ancestor of Bart. He's like, did you see the note that we had to make this guy look like he just drew some guy that he was attracted to?
Yeah, it would be appropriate to point out here that Kaori Tanaka, aka Sorya Saga, wrote the backstory for Bart and Sigurd, and also the Ronnie/Renee relationship as well. She is also responsible for the creation of Edgar and Sabin from Final Fantasy VI.
That's right.
And there's a lot of, you can feel a lot of the parallels here, knowing that fact.
So Renee asks if something's up with Lacan, who's being quiet.
Yes, he's being quiet, and Lacan is thinking about, of course, the only thing that we know to this point that Lacan is capable of thinking about.
Painting Sophia.
Yes. And Renee reestablishes lore when Lacan says Sophia, he's got to reestablish a couple of things for the viewer.
How do you know Sophia?
You mean your childhood friend who's now the holy mother of Nisan. I'm like, okay, thank you for that. That is one piece of lore we do not need reestablished, but thank you, Beefcake Renee.
Lacan corrects him. She's not a friend. He just made her acquaintance at the monastery near his house when he was a child, a.k.a. a friend.
Yes. And there's something about her being frail, and maybe she was sick. She was being treated there or something.
Yeah. Did she originally go there for healing or something like that?
Perhaps. Lacan is worried about painting because Sophia herself doesn't want to become a symbol for anything. And I've got news for you, Sophia.
Uh-oh.
You're going to become a symbol for something for a very long time. Lacan tells Renee that Sophia only agreed because Lacan was the one to be the painter. And Ronnie says, she must like you. And that's how all women are. Right, Krelian? And then we're like, oh, wow, cool, Krelian's here. And Krelian doesn't respond. And he goes, hey, Krell. And I wonder what the original terminology was here. Well, was it hey, Krelian-chan or something like, or hey, Krell-kun or something like that.
The nickname?
Yeah. And he's got the nickname. So it's establishing a closeness between Ronnie and Krelian there.
Krelian had blue hair here, just to point that out.
Yes, indeed. Just like he did in a couple of flashbacks that we've seen to this point. But
he's not really paying attention to the conversation when Ronnie asks him about the way women show affection.
No, Ronnie, Krelian wants to listen, and Ronnie, he channels his descendant Bart here for a second, and he goes, what? Are you out to offend divine providence or something, Lacan?
Fucking owned.
Are you
owned?
He's saying, are you trying to bone a holy woman, is what he's trying to say here. And Lacan gets embarrassed and tells him to cut it out.
I really like, are you trying to offend divine providence? It's like when you watch a Shakespeare play or anything from the 1400s or whatever, is Shakespeare 14 or 1600s? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Initializing fake net.
It does matter. Shakespeare started his writing career in 1592.
Yeah, but when someone uses a joke in old-timey fancy language and, I bite my thumb at you or something like that, and you can appreciate it as a period of antiquity of someone trying to make fun of someone else.
Ah, yes, indeed. And then Ronnie sits closer and then tells Lacan to lighten up, just like our bros do when we're sad.
Yeah. Hey, man, stop being so serious about it. You don't got to think about this all the time.
Can we initialize the real net real quick? I just noticed something.
Sure.
Initializing real net.
According to Age of Descent, Ronnie calls Krelian Karel in Japanese with no honorific. So thank you, Age of Descent, and thank you, RealNet.
So it's at this point that I realized what they were sitting next to in the desert. Did you catch this?
No.
The Yggdrasil.
Oh, okay, cool.
They're kind of posted up beside. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I thought I saw the crest and all that stuff on it. The original Shavat crest. That's all I have for that campfire flashback.
Yeah, then we we go to Nisan.
Yep.
And
the treasure which cannot be stolen with windy background noises.
Indeed. Krelian and Lacan are here, and Krelian says, Sophia first showed me that books are the best way to calm the heart, and now I'm hooked on reading. I'm not trying to brag or anything, bro, but I really like books. You should try them.
Big question here.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a formal education system? Is book reading a thing? Is there a literacy problem?
There's a monastery, so maybe only through the religious sect.
Can you be taught?
We come to, we already know that Krelian is in charge of the Nisan militia.
Yeah.
So maybe it's only through military or holy work.
It just strikes me as the Ron Burgundy thing where he tries to impress a woman by insisting that he owns many leather-bound books.
Yeah.
His Krelian's latest book is from the word I have trouble saying.
Melchior.
Yes, it talks about molecular engineering and nanotech, and it was found in Zeboim's ruins.
Yes, it is a copy of someone's incomplete research report. Who do you think that could be?
I don't know.
Eric?
Jeez, who is the only Zeboim character we actually know of that perished down there?
Well, do we explicitly know that?
Do you know anybody else? I mean,
it's Kim.
Yeah, it's Kim.
It's not Emeralda.
Right.
It's got to be Kim, right? So, we don't really know much about Kim at this point in time, but we do know he wears a lab coat.
Mm-hmm.
So,
scientist Faye.
Good enough.
Also, the book is incomplete.
Yes.
And that's all we've got there, kind of?
Yeah, then we go back to painting briefly again.
Yes, the Nisan painting room, Lost Broken Shards, I hope plays.
It is because
Thank you.
I waited for the track to end, and it ended. As we've established previously, Lost Broken Shards will play once and it will not loop. Shattering Egg of Dreams will loop.
Sophia calls out Lacan for being a sad sack of shit.
Yes. What's wrong? You don't look so good. And she asks if Lacan if he's okay. He seems melancholy, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be done for the day."
Yeah, but rather than done, doesn't she convince him just to take a break?
Yes.
And then she'll have Krelian take him off, and then it kind of trails off as it fades out.
Yeah.
Like, go hang out with your friend Krelian.
Yeah. Then we go back to the campfire.
Yeah.
And we get Ship of Sleep and Regret. Again, unfortunately, I would prefer more Bonds of Sea and Fire, but here we are. Krelian says, even so, there was a time when I did some pretty vicious things. I lashed out at random. Everyone around me feared me, even my friends. I lived a life surrounded by people who looked at me with fear in their own eyes. She was the one who wasn't afraid of me. She would just smile. She was the one who gave him peace in mind and taught him how to use it. All that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just what's your read on that line? Like, he's real. I mean, on one hand, you give Krelian credit there because he's realizing like I was a fucking asshole.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it's like, well, why did it take somebody's smile to realize
to change that?
Yeah.
That's some hopeless romantic stuff.
Yeah.
My first thought there was, is this a reflection of his past or his future? Because we don't know what Krelian's past was before this yet, other than leader of militia.
Yeah.
But I was reading Perfect Works yesterday, as I do every day. And again, the localization, pretty bad. But I want to say that Krelian was hired to lead like a death squad to assassinate Sophia at some point.
Oh,
like
that's in there.
In Cardinal Pinel's like that whole on her way to become Nissan Mother, there was some deadly strife there. And I couldn't tell if Krelian defended it or instigated it by the way it was written.
Yeah.
So I don't know necessarily if that's what he's referencing there.
Maybe it was one of those scenarios sort of like Saitan, where he was like sent out against his enemy and then married his daughter.
And then she smiled and he changed his mind.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. It's a weird sort of plot device, but like maybe that was the encounter in which led him to reassess the way he treated people.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
Peace of mind, taught him how to live as a human, and this is a big turn on for Krelian.
Apparently. I mean, sure.
I guess, if you've never felt those feelings before, then a woman changing your heart is popular and effective storytelling device.
Indeed. Then we go back to the painting room for a minute, and we get my song, jam, Bonds of Sea and Fire. Krelian walks in on Lacan and asks him what he's doing.
He's like looking for stuff?
Yeah. Ronnie is there too. Lacan, maybe he's just gathering up his shit because he's saying, I'm going to stop painting the portrait. He doesn't think he should be painting right now.
He's probably folding up his paint set. He's like, I'm not coming back. I'm done.
He doesn't think he should be painting at a time like this. And I guess by time like this, he means like there's a war going on.
Yeah, she's going to the front lines. The war must be getting pretty bad.
You know what's pretty interesting about this line here he says she must stand at the front lines. Like, we don't really get an indication, at least up until this point, that Sophia is engaged in combat. But I do think that we know Sophia became Sophia because she was tested to have high synchronization with ether. Like that's a perfect works thing. We don't get that.
Being a measure of who is selected as Nissan Mother.
Yeah, we don't get that in the game, and we don't really understand up until this point that she is a combatant as well. And I think it's interesting, or maybe not interesting, but like maybe maybe it's just a product of the game telling this part of the story the way it has to tell the story. Like maybe if this was a fully fleshed out, Xenogears 2 or whatever, then we would have been playing as these characters and we would have understood that Sophia was a combatant.
Like a third of this game would, how a fifth of Final Fantasy VIII is Laguna flashbacks?
Yeah.
So it'd be a similar storytelling device.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Where it would be throughout the game and not just packed into disc 2 here.
Yep.
Either way, it doesn't matter because Krelian immediately calls bullshit. And that's what the real problem is.
Yeah. And then Lacan, he comes clean pretty quickly and says, her smile, it's killing me. The more
go ahead.
I have the full line. He says, the more she smiles at me, the more I feel my very being becoming insignificant. Inside my heart, there is this empty existence. Other than painting, I have no worth.
Okay. So, are you familiar with the trope of the manic pixie dream girl?
No. Explain this to me.
A quirky girl appears and forever changes a young man's life.
Yeah. Just
by being this impossible vision of like the perfect woman to solve all of his problems for him.
Yeah, there was an anime that sort of turned it on its head called Tenchi Muyo.
Cool. I mean, Garden State is a really good example of that. So is Elizabethtown. Very mid-aughts. Like, whenever someone identified that trope, people stopped doing it finally. So, I think with Faye and Sophia, because of their history, that smile might have some more to read into it. But if she's just smiling at people and then they just start desiring her and nothing else, because Krelian, as we'll learn, has a thing for Sophia as well.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like a weird thing where she smiles at people and hypnotizes them.
Yeah. It's something that, like you said, it's not something that actually happens, I don't think, in real life, like beyond your teenage years.
Yeah, no, everyone dates a girl with blue hair at some point.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, we learned that Lacan wanted that moment to last forever, and now he just can't fucking stand it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't want this moment. He says, as the picture neared completion, the empty parts of me started to manifest in my brush strokes. He's not even Groff yet, but he's saying some metal shit already.
Yeah.
Like, my sadness is in my brushstrokes. It's 2 or 3 levels away from my fist is the divine breath.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell how he workshopped that into something more intimidating.
Yeah.
Without painting, he feels no worth.
Yeah.
He feels like he's getting smaller, which is just massive insecurity developing and getting bigger and bigger.
As he further gets deeper into this thought, he explains explicitly why he needs to stop. It's because he feels as if the painting is revealing his true self, which is interesting to hear him say that, knowing that what he's going to become.
Mm-hmm. But do you think that reads like a Da Vinci line where the Mona Lisa might be a self-portrait?
Could be, yeah. I mean, and that's kind of what he talks about too. He says, I meant to be painting her as she really is, but this picture is my own self. My empty self has begun to appear within there. That's why I've got to stop now. So maybe very literally that was inspired by the Da Vinci thing.
The most famous artist.
The most famous artist.
The most famous artist.
And the portrait of Sophia, she's in the same Mona Lisa pose. I mean, it's pretty much it's pretty much the same thing. So maybe that is where it was explicitly drawn from.
If only Faye was in Assassin's Creed, Da Vinci could give him his powers and unlock abilities.
Yes.
So do you have Krelian's retort here?
No.
Krelian says that Lacan is just running away and that by painting her, Lacan can see the gap between his inner emptiness and her inner abundance. And Lacan can't fill that gap. He's refusing her, yet can't bring himself to leave her. And what's the line that Krelian leaves off?
I have, in spite of that, why is it that she continues to smile at you? Was that right?
Well, it doesn't exist.
Oh.
The line that he meant to say after that is, and that's why she should be my girlfriend.
Yeah. He is essentially, at this point in time, both becoming angry and jealous because jealous that he is not on the receiving end of Sophia's feelings and angry that Lacan is not able to accept them himself.
It's like, if it was me who was receiving such feelings, if she was my girlfriend, this wouldn't happen. I could make her happier. Yeah,
and it's going to be, I think we're going to have to pay close attention to this because there's not that much left in this game, but I think there's a lot left with Krelian. And whether or not he is, at this point in time, is he still acting on these feelings hundreds of years later is not clear. Like, I'm not totally convinced that we've heard Krelian's final creed. I think his initial creed is like, I'm going to create God because, there is no God and she was taken away from me. But I think his final creed could end up being different because for some reason he's keeping Faye, aka Lacan, alive in the present. So I think there's a lot more to happen with Krelian going forward. Then we fade out.
Yes.
And we see Sophia.
We're on a battlefield.
Yeah.
There is a kneeling El Regulator, and then a very curious gear is next to it. It's a light teal and gray gear with a headdress, like what's the thing that people in Arabic regions, the head scarf? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? Yes. It looks like it has something similar to that in gear form.
Yes.
Out in the desert, which is Krelian's gear. We don't know if it's emphysema or not, but it is something similar to that. Krelian asks Sophia why she's neglecting so much of herself.
Yes.
And that's it. Then the scene fades out.
Yeah, there's not very much there at all. We go back to the painting room.
Yeah.
And I guess they're picking up where they left off before. And Ronnie says, is this really her true expression? Lacan says, yeah, to people who don't really know her, I guess. Ronnie thinks that the smile is different than what she usually shows. She's never shown her true inner self. Ronnie doesn't understand why he would want to stop painting such a beautiful expression.
Yeah.
And then Ronnie asks Lacan why he tags along with him if he's so empty. Like, this is the point in time in which Lacan is getting extremely emo.
Yeah.
Ronnie asks Lacan why he tags along with him if he's so empty. His specific quote is, well, what we've been doing up until now are not just acts of mercy, it's a fight for our freedom. Time and again, you've been through life-threatening situations with us. He's like, Lacan, you've been out here with us fighting bad guys along this way. Why are you so depressed sounding right now? And Lacan thinks Ronnie is giving him too much credit. And then he says something sort of depressing. As long as you have something to do to keep yourself occupied, you can ignore the hollowness inside. From the beginning, my very existence itself was an emptiness. It wouldn't matter if I were to die right now. You live, you die, that's all. So
that's a good podcast sign off.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, the last thing that Lacan has that he's clinging on to is his podcast.
Yeah.
He's like, I just need something to do, guys.
So 2 things. One, obviously Lacan has never heard of Realm, who uses her painter skills in fighting.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly.
2, the thing about Sophia having a smile that no one else recognizes and that Lacan, it's reserved for Lacan. That's what she gives him. That bit of intimacy comes out in the painting and nobody else knows. It's like their secret thing. But I think, in my opinion, that conflicts with Lacan painting himself in the painting.
Yeah.
It could also be read as, oh, no, he fucked it up and put himself in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know what direction that goes.
Ronnie sort of pushes back on Lacan here, being his bro and all.
Yeah.
And says that he's lying. It's not that you're worthless. It's just that you're not very good at expressing your feelings.
Yeah. And it also rejects Krelian's intensity and jealousy angle by saying that instead.
Indeed. He says you're not empty. She knows that. That's why she knows you are.
Basically says, fuck you, pessimist.
Yeah. He says that's why she only shows you her true smile. Lacan still doesn't think he deserves it.
Why would she open her heart to a mere artist like me?
Yeah, a mere artist. You're an artist. Artists are fucking sexy.
Yeah. Does he have crippling self-doubt, or is he just incapable? Is that his character flaw that he can't get over? Does he have zero self-worth?
I think so.
Despite being immensely talented at a multiple variety of subjects?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, he's depressed. I mean, there's no way around it. Like, he's got things in his life, but he cannot help himself. He cannot save himself from what he's feeling inside.
And yet we're playing a video game made by a team of artists who couldn't finish it. Ooh.
Eric. Wow. Did you just come up with that just now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then Renee pops in.
Yeah, bro. Hey, bro.
He does double bros and then says bro a third time and asks what they're all doing there. And then Zephyr walks in.
Yeah.
Bro is very good. I was like, is he like a Hammer descendant? Like, is Hammer a lost Fatima?
Maybe so. Wow. Yeah, Zephyr is there too. She's not the queen, but she's still dressed like the queen. Yep. So she says that the Council of Elders of Shavat has issued a decision. Tomorrow we leave for Soylent.
Right, and this is before Soylent was a pressing factory for recycled meat. They were all the surface stations that our team invaded earlier.
Yeah.
These are these surface-based Soylent stations.
Sophia's going too, by the way.
Yeah. Krelian is pissed, and she says she needs to stay there and deal with refugees.
Yeah.
But then Zephyr counters and says this was Sophia's will.
Yes.
Krelian continues to get upset.
And everyone gets confused and the seed fades.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is another moment in which we're getting very obviously the Krelian villain origin story.
Yeah, he just keeps getting madder and madder with nowhere to really direct all of his anger.
It's pretty good. It's better than the film The Joker.
I have not seen that film, Chris. Finally, a movie I haven't seen. So then we're at this battlefield and things have not been going well. Lacan is kneeling over a horizontal Sophia.
Yeah, she's fallen at the foot of a gear. That gear, did you notice the gear?
No.
It is El Regulator.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
El Regers.
LREGRS.
Krelian screams Sophia's name and marches up to Lacan, who is either shoved out of the way or just backs off.
Yeah. I think at this point in time, Lacan would have been somebody who would back off.
Yeah, you're right. Krelian yells at Lacan, says he knew they shouldn't have left Sophia with him, and then vows to protect Sophia with his life.
Yeah.
Which kind of, in Krelian's mind, makes Sophia his possession and the rightful one for him.
Yeah, that's not the way you should act.
No, it's not. It isn't.
It isn't, but that's what he does.
It's not good for leadership or basic interpersonal relationships.
No.
But,
At this point in time, like, I don't know how you felt about this whole section. I liked the section, but preparing this for the podcast was arduous.
Yeah, there's no save point for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I especially feel for you because you're playing on original hardware. I, at this point in time, saved the state and went to bed.
Yeah, like I was doing this in the morning, so I had time all day, but I think it was like an hour and a half of in-game time between save points, like on the save clock as I hit pause in the game. But I think I was spending like 3.5 hours with my laptop open typing up all this shit.
Yeah, this whole section took a long time to document.
It's a lot.
And write down my feelings and stuff.
I think...
But it's weird because like all the things that... Remember our episode of... And this is before the real net was established, so no one's heard it yet, but our episodes on Krelian's lab, where like, there was this huge area to explore and there was a lot of things to do in between, like making observations, where here it's just all force-fed and you're just like, oh, wow, I'm taking notes in this lecture. And it's something, I like this part. I just wish there was parts to play, but obviously disc 2 is what it is. So now, there's a little meta commentary. I don't know if I'll make the podcast or not, but... So, we're now in a hospital room.
No.
Oh?
You know where we are?
Where?
The doctor's office on the Yggdrasil.
Oh, really? Are we?
It's got the exact same, I mean, it may not supposed to be that, but it is the exact same room, like with the assets and everything. It has that curtain, it has those chairs, it's all
interesting.
There.
I didn't notice that. Probably because the tones are different.
Yeah. It's kind of dimmed a little bit.
Yeah.
In there is Ronnie, Lacan, Krelian, and then a sleeping Sophia.
Indeed.
Ship of regret and sleep place.
Ronnie says, why don't you get some rest, Krell? Ronnie implores Krelian to get some rest, but like...
Krelian's been up for 2 days.
Yeah. He's like, you're in charge of the military. You should probably get some sleep.
Did you notice what Lacan was doing?
No.
Standing up, head down. Feeling sorry for himself. Ronnie convinces Krelian to go to sleep, as you said. And then he stares at Lacan for a second, and then he also walks out.
Yep. Does he say anything, or he just walks out?
Like, he starts to walk out, turns around, stares at Lacan, and then resumes walking out.
Good sprite work.
Yeah.
Lacan and Sophia are there alone, and he says, Ellie.
Yeah, her given name.
I am so sorry. It was my misjudgment that did this to you. I was terrified. It was like you could see right through me. Your eyes, that look, that was me being reflected back in your eyes. I was looking at myself, thus painting myself. I couldn't stand it. So that's why. And he trails off and he says, oh, Ellie, what in heavens did you find inside me?
Yeah.
And then he talks about how he wants to ask her the answer to this question, but he doesn't want to burden her with it.
Mm-hmm. At this point, I forgot that her original name was Ellie, and I was like, is the game fucking up?
Oh, yeah.
Did someone put the wrong text in here?
Yeah.
So Lacan's putting her on a pedestal. He's just building the pedestal higher while she's on it.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Like
and
he's buying into the legend and forgetting the human.
I think so, and that's the complete opposite of what she says when she wakes up.
Right.
She wakes up, she says, you're the sweetest person. You are someone who cannot bear to see others hurt by your own actions. Before we get deeper, what was the particular action? Do we know what the action was that led to her injury?
I don't. Do we ever even figure that out?
I don't think so.
Just maybe his reluctance on the battlefield, or she went too far and he didn't rein her back in?
Yeah, maybe so.
Like, is it a product of his failure to act or her intensity in trying to do too much?
It's likely something that just happened and he's blaming himself for it.
You know
what I mean?
Shit happens out there. Also, Krelian's blaming him for it, which I'm sure weighs heavily on him.
Indeed. Sophia then goes on and talks a little bit deeper about this. Lacan doesn't want Ellie to become just another human, and Ellie doesn't agree and says humans are not so frail.
He's also seems to be afraid of her losing her status as a figurehead.
Yeah.
Like, he wants everyone else to acknowledge the light that he sees her in.
Yeah, he's like...
And not be a human.
That's what he means by don't become just another human. And she's like, no. That is the exact opposite of what I need to be.
Yeah.
She says, they don't need a symbol who is just appearances only. I believe that if you have light in your heart, you can overcome any hardship. So then Sophia does the very Gnostic thing. She boils Gnosticism down to like a Wikipedia level here. Sophia then does the Gnostic thing here and says, what I have been doing is simply showing people that such light exists in the hearts of everyone. And that is the inner knowledge sort of thing. Like, you don't need to look outside of yourself to find your purpose or to find God. You have that light within you. And we're going to hear that a lot.
Very pro-humanity.
Indeed. It's a very humanist but religious kind of way of thinking about it. She says, I'm just a woman, and to fulfill my womanhood, I am prepared to throw away everything, even this position. I am just playing the role of Sophia, but I am still me. She doesn't want to live a lie, and she sort of talks about how she wants to...
She couldn't live a lie and be happy.
Yeah, she's got to lay this out. She's got to lay out her plans here for Lacan. She wants to maintain her individuality and not play the role of Sophia, to live more honestly with herself and, quote, to be able to tell the man that I love that I do love him. And that's an odd expression.
Yeah.
Especially when you wrap up your... Sophia just portrayed a worldview that for the society that she lives in is a unique worldview, like this inner knowledge thing. This is the key teaching here. But then she's wrapping all that up like around like expressing the love of a man and sort of betraying the inner knowledge thing. Yeah. It's like, I've got to tell you I love you to be myself, but also I have that light within myself. So why do I need... It's just it's a little conflicting. It's another one of those circumstances where a woman was written by a man.
She also, says something terribly ironic here before, like right before she launches into that. She says, "You only have one life."
Yeah,
which not you two.
She YOLOs.
Yeah,
literally.
But she doesn't have one life. Her and the Fae presence have multiple lives.
Yeah.
To do this again.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely.
Anyway, she has very positive mental health, I think.
Yes.
She's very self-assured and knows what she wants to do and how she wants to handle herself publicly and privately.
Indeed. So
Lacan struggles to respond.
He does. And then like a creepy Krelian sprite sort of phases in.
He materializes, which I think it's supposed to mean he walks in the door, but it didn't animate that for some reason. He just kind of appears.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's Faye's perception is Krelian. Like he didn't hear him come in.
Yeah.
And that he just looked up and he was there witnessing Sophia pouring his heart out.
Yeah.
And then his heart breaking. Like I think at some point in The Simpsons, there's like a slow-mo shot where Lisa doesn't like Martin and then Bart films it or something and then slows it down to where you can see his heart break.
Yeah.
Watch this, Lise. You can actually pinpoint the second when his heart rips in half.
Yeah, that's a really great read on it, because I just wrote that he was under fire and he's in bad shape, but yeah, he's in bad shape in more ways than just his gear getting fucking shelled right now.
Yeah, also he hasn't slept in 2 days.
Yeah, also, like Faye did that one time. Yeah. So, is that it for this episode?
I think that's it for this episode. A lot of content.
It is a lot of content. Okay, let us consult the RealNet.
Initializing RealNet.
I'm going to read this one from Quistacular.
So you practiced this, Chris.
I did.
You can do it.
Just because I like it. It says, it's weird hearing them talk when I'm not on my commute on Monday morning. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, that could upset. Like, I have a podcast schedule that I keep, and if I listen to a different podcast on a different day, it feels like I'm breaking my own internal rules.
Age of Descent says, in reference to the Ship of Sleep and Regret, the song, the instrument is a harpsichord.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Chris and Chris, you know anything about music creation?
I know nothing about
Me
music.
neither. Yeah. I listen to a lot of it, but as far as making it, I don't know shit.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Chris and I are highly speculative. Thank you for that. What did I say? Electric piano? Is that even...
Quistacular says, this game came out during Left Behind when they were still being written.
Okay. I'm not sure if there was any direct influence there, but at least that was in kind of the public consciousness, the collective unconscious.
Cliff Racer says, Xenogears is basically that quote about kill one man and they call me a murderer, kill them all and they call me a god.
Yeah.
Alter Impulse says, yeah, I kind of see as a modern comparison as Shavat versus Solaris is basically US versus Nazi Germany. And even they did something similar with allocations and exchanges and a lot of crossover. See Operation Paperclip, etc. People started talking about the Power Glove and I love it.
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
Here's a good point from Denton D. We were talking about Citan being the Lord distributor earlier in the game, and now he doesn't know anything.
Yeah, his role has changed.
Denton D says, to be fair, Citan's drip of information came from Cain. Cain likely had no idea what the fuck happened at this point 500 years ago. Like, Cain was around, he was in charge, but he didn't know what was going on in the surface, probably.
Right.
He was merely an administrator.
And I'm sure that when Krelian defected, he didn't tell Cain about all of his weaknesses and mistakes.
Yes. Denty says, I feel this game implies Ellie will always sacrifice herself.
Yeah.
Motherly will, all that stuff.
She'll find a way.
I think that goes back to the conversation we had about like Lacan, like were his actions predetermined? His actions probably not in terms of seeking out the power, but Sophia's actions of sacrificing herself definitely could have happened.
So Lacan is the variable that Ellie is modeled around trying to find a way to sacrifice around. Yeah. Basically. Like one's a challenge and one is a solution in search of that challenge.
Yeah. Cliff Racer says Takahashi got more into it in Xenosaga, but Xenogears has a lot of themes of eternal reoccurrence. Alter Impulse says Citan definitely learned a lot about world history, etc., but it was in the form of Solarian propaganda because that is where he was educated. So great one. Alter Impulse says, yeah, I actually like the way they portray a dissociative episode here, even if it was a bit too dramatic in reference to that first Faye episode. We're going to get a lot more of that later. Quistacular says, yes, I always saw Ellie as being sacrificial and motherly. That must be what is built into the system. Cliff Racer says, the whole Faye-id thing is textbook soap opera, which I think is exploitative, even if the reason it sticks around is that it's a solid narrative trope. Yeah. In terms of the Faye-id resolution stuff, which we're going to talk about soon, and it kind of started during this particular chapter. Interesting. Ronnie, Alter Impulse also says Ronnie's portrait is a swap of Sigurd's.
Oh, okay. Because Sigurd is kind of shiny too, so that makes sense. Like his hair he has a more expensive shampoo.
Denty says Sophia/Ellie's role as a fighter is weird. I agree. She's like not portrayed as a fighter. We kind of talked about that, but her being this like the holy mother of Nissan should be like, at least from troping it out in a JRPG context, should be like a backlines healer, like Margie is. Yeah. But Sophia is not. She's up in this gear, getting up in the business. Cliff Racer says, Xenogears is the second most Oedipal Takahashi game.
Yeah, we're going to have the Oedipus conversation at some point.
Yeah,
right?
We will. Denty likes the tortured painter portrayal of Lacan despite the sexism. Alter Impulse chimes in and says, me too, even if on a social justice and ethical level, I want to slap Lacan on an emotional level, I get. Yeah. But we kind of get it because he's depressed. So.
And he's a product of his time too, with how that was portrayed in fiction, at least the fiction that was experienced by people, creators in their 20s.
Yeah. Denty says, this picture is my own self is a cool line, yet I hate it, how much it makes everything about Sophia and himself in terms of Lacan's stuff. Quistacular also says, don't put people on a pedestal, which is something that both Krelian and Lacan do, which is
it's very unhealthy.
Guess what? Those two guys become bad guys. So don't do that. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the outtakes. This episode is a production of Retrograde Amnesia. Thank you, Eric, for all of your hard work editing the podcast.
Thanks for your production work, Chris.
Thank you, Mark,
Shepherd.
for the intro track. If you like the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/retroam. Get early access, bonus episodes, miniseries, and more. Find us on Twitter at RetroAmnesiaPod. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcast. It will help people discover the show. If you have questions or feedback, email the show at retrogradeamnesiapodcast@gmail.com. Shouts to the RealNet for joining us tonight. And until next time.
Yes, we will kill God.
And now you may go back to sleep.
A 3/4 of a page for an entire episode, and now we have 13, 18 pages for...
I really want to maybe as a bonus episode, just
do those again.
Just do Lahan Village again.
Yeah.
just see how it turns out.
Lahan Village 2.0.
Yeah.
Toilet flush?
No, I heard Discord in my headphones and it was weird. It freaked me out. It's just a couple more people joined. And now we have more viewers than WrestleMania. Can you see my face, by the way?
Half of it.
Okay. Is it good?
No, it's fine. You're like Two-Face. All I need to see is make one eye contact.
All right. The power. Let me say that again. I think I just clipped the shit out of the waveform.
Hell yeah.
And
Okay. Set that up better. That was good.
You mean do it again?
No, that was good.
Okay. I believe that if you have light in your heart, you can overcome any hardship.
That's a Biden tweet.
Shit.
Sorry.
Oh, man.
Yeah, well, I fucked Chris up. My bad. She's showing people...
Hold on. I have something important to say here. And you're going to throw a Biden tweet at me. Why are you doing all that? And then what Lacan says here is sort of depressing. He says, what we've been doing up till now are not just acts of mercy. It's a fight for our freedom. Time and again, you've been through life-threatening situations with us. I'm sorry, that's not the right line. That's what Ronnie says.
Krelian says that Faye's just running away.
Lacan.
Damn it, I keep doing that, don't I? Faye corrects him.
It's not Faye. It will
nice,
be.
You will be. Lacan corrects him. She's not a friend. The picture that I should hang on the wall next to the bouncer poster, it should be like an unfinished portrait of me.
Simple Gnostic teaching and says, what I have done... no, that's not what she says. I said it wrong.
No,
like Bart,